Yes, that's right. I'm on another road trip, this time in Capital Region, USA, starting here in Virginia Beach and heading north, passing Washington, DC and ending up in Maryland. Now, this is a really good tag on to the last road trip I did where I went south from Jersey City to Philadelphia. You could continue south and do it the other way around, but we started by flying into Norfolk, starting at Virginia Beach, which you can see behind me now, and I am once again traveling with Travel Dave, the ultimate road trip buddy, and we've hired a car and we are doing this all on the road. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing, hit the notifications if you don't want to miss a video, and give this video a thumbs up if you are enjoying it. And please feel free to comment with any questions, any suggestions and any ideas that you have. Other than that, let's get stuck into the itinerary. Our first activity actually started yesterday. We had a fantastic trip with an oyster farmer called Chris. I'm going to cut to that now before heading straight into the itinerary.
So hey, yeah, I'm Captain Chris, and I'm your guide for the afternoon. I enjoy talking about the history, of this river, the entertainment it provides, the food it provides, the seafood, the history, and the recreation.
Our first stop in Virginia Beach on this road trip is to Lynnhaven Inlet, where we are learning about oyster farming, and we have Captain Chris. He's currently just sorting some oysters out now, but just want to make you aware that a lot of the tours, they're very hands-on, and it's normally at lower tide, so this is all completely standard. People do normally get in the water, but we arrived a little bit late. It's higher tide, but we are still getting a fantastic demo, a brilliant history from Captain Chris, who is there waiting with oysters now. We are now tasting the oysters. Captain Chris is shucking them, preparing them. Dave is tasting them and eating them because I don't eat the oysters. So we're going to get the reaction fresh as you like. 60 minutes ago they were in the ocean?
62.
62 minutes. That's a very happy man. Alright, it's been a blinding start to the Virginia Beach leg of this trip, and we've now stopped at a floating dock called Dockside, grabbed a beer, a local beer called Proper Lager, and it's pretty good, That is a proper lager. Dave is going to chuck some more oysters with his beer. He's got some hot sauce to put on them. Let's look at this. Stunning, stunning evening.
It's been a bit of
Cheers, mate. Alright, good morning. Our first full day in Virginia Beach, and I'm out on the water kayaking. Fingers crossed to see some dolphins. I'm with Brody from Chesapeake Outdoors. Let me just check I got that right. After what was probably one of the best wildlife encounters I've ever had with the dolphins, we went parasailing. Alright, this morning kayaking with dolphins, and this afternoon parasailing over the Boardwalk and Virginia Beach. Before heading over to the Vibe Creative District, which is essentially a project to support the local economy and help artists and small businesses. It's also a very important regeneration project for the area, and we took a golf buggy tour with Director of Vibe, Kate Pittman. He ended the day at the fantastic Boardwalk, where there's always lots going on, including a music festival and a beach football or beach soccer tournament. We had dinner there and unfortunately didn't have time to go to Sandbridge Beach, although that is highly recommended, but I did finish with a couple of drinks in a local's favourite hotspot, Hot Tuna. The following day we got up and headed to the First Landing State Park, which is the park which marks where the English colonists first landed in 1607. Nearby to First Landing and also in Cape Henry you'll find the Lighthouse, and don't forget to take your passport because this is an active military base. And then we drove to Washington DC, checked into the Cambria Hotel, which is a really lovely spot and a brilliant hotel, and then had dinner at GATSBY. GATSBY is a brilliant upscale American diner right across the street from the National Stadium. Good morning and hello from Washington DC. We arrived last night and this morning we're exploring things like the museums, Arctic House, we're going to the National Art Gallery and of course the Washington Monument. We're going to check out the Whitehouse Really cool to see some of these places that we've obviously seen on TV. Alright, so we decided to have a break from Pride and pop to the AC Lounge at the AC Marriott for a cocktail and some tapas, compliments of them, so thank you very much and cheers! So today we came to the Hirshhorn Museum. We're currently in the sculpture garden. There's exhibitions that change every few months here, but the one we've just seen was Yoko Sama, an unbelievable Japanese artist, very famous. That was so busy. We were lucky enough to have an early entry where there weren't any crowds, so we're very, very privileged to have that. So make sure you get here early. It's a very popular museum, one of many. One of my tips for Washington DC is if you're into museums and art, have a few days here because there's so many to see. We still didn't get to see the Spy Museum. Wanted to spend more time in the National Gallery. So yeah, really cool place for museums and art. Alright, so we are heading out of Washington DC today, but before we do, we've come to the Shore Neighborhood and the DC Alley Museum, which is an outdoor museum of all of these amazing murals. We've just grabbed a coffee from the Columb over there. Right, you know how much I love a craft brewery. This is right proper Shore's brew pub in the Shore district. Got a couple of beers to taste, bit of sandwich and soup action going on there. Some really cool murals on the wall here. Very chilled, very nice before we head out of Washington DC. Cheers. Okay, moving on to the next leg and the final leg of our Capital Region USA road trip. We've come down to Talbot County. Last night we drove into Easton and stayed at the Tidewater Inn before dinner at Legal Assets. That was a lovely and chilled evening. We walked around the town and picked up some of the infamous ice cream from the ice cream shop. And this morning we've come to Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. We're learning all about the history and the war in 1812 between the British and the Americans before going on a folklore tour around the bay on a boat trip. Very good day ahead. Alright, this is pretty lucky timing. We've just been learning about the Maryland dove over at the museum, which sailed across the Atlantic in 1634 from the Isle of Wight, right next door to where I live. And we've just seen it now taking its first voyage. It's a replica of what they believe and what they know it to have looked like back in those days. Heading out for the first time. Alright, so this afternoon we've come back to St. Michael and we are going to see a winery, a rum distillery and a brewery all within a stone's throw from each other just off of Talbot Street. Looking forward to having a little tasting. All these places are very local. They only really serve the local area. All the local restaurants have their wines, have their rums and have their beers on offer. So yeah, really looking forward to this. Going to spend the next couple of hours having a good time in St. Michael. Okay, everyone's watching me. That's really good actually, that's really tasty. We are saving the best till last. We've come to Eastern Shore Brewery and this is the Blue Heron. Cheers. Just headed across on the car ferry, which you can see in the distance over there, somewhere from Bellevue to Oxford. We're gonna have a little wander around and grab some dinner over here. It is our final day in Talbot County and we've come to the waterman's village of Tilghman Island or Tilghman Island, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Pop that in the comments if you know the answer. We've gone to Tuif by Sea for a lovely breakfast. That place isn't actually by the sea, did you know? But it's awesome there. We've come to the Back Creek Community Park where I am now and we've stopped by the mural before heading home, sadly, back to Washington DC and flying out. Okay, and that concludes my Capital Region road trip. I'm now at Washington Baltimore Airport. We started in Virginia Beach, went up to Washington DC, and ended up in Talbot County. Thank you for all the partners and all the hosts. Please look at the description to see all of the links to everyone I've worked with, where I stayed, and I'll also put a link to my articles about this trip as well. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and don't forget to turn on the notifications. And if you've got any suggestions or any comments, pop them in the comments below. Other than that, thank you for watching and happy travels.